The Mafia boss walked into his mansion unannounced on a rainy Tuesday. His black overcoat dripped water onto the marble. He closed the door behind him and took 2 steps forward. Then suddenly, someone ran at him from the side. A yellow-gloved hand clamped over his mouth. His breath caught. His body jerked backward into shadow. "Don't breathe, Dawn," a woman whispered, terrified. "Please." It was Sandra, his maid. She pulled him into a cramped coat closet and left the door open just a crack. Her hand stayed firm against his lips. Michael Clemenza could hear his pulse hammering in his skull. Footsteps clicked across the floor. Confident, unhurried, lethal. Through the narrow opening, Michael saw his wife appear in the hallway, then his consigliere. They stood close together, laughing quietly, comfortable, like they owned the place. "He should be dead in the lake by now," his consigliere said. His wife exhaled, annoyed. "I put the tracker in his briefcase this morning. They would have had him by 8. Michael's knees almost buckled. The ambush at the docks, the phone call that sent him to the warehouse, the route his driver suggested, all of it clicked into place in one brutal second. Tuesday was not business as usual. It was execution day. Sandra squeezed his wrist harder. Her eyes locked on his, filled with raw fear and iron determination. "If you walk out there," she whispered, "you won't make it to sunrise." And just like that, Michael realized the most dangerous place in the world was his own home. And the only person trying to save him was the woman he never truly saw. Tuesday evening in Chicago was supposed to be predictable for Michael Clemenza. He wanted one quiet hour at home before the midnight meeting with the families. So he left the social club early, drove himself to the mansion, and told no one. No call to his wife, no text to his security, no warning. He wanted to see Lauren's face when he walked through the door unannounced, maybe catch her off guard for once. The iron gate rolled open. The exterior lights glowed warm against the rain. The fountain in the courtyard still ran. But something felt off. Michael grabbed his briefcase and walked quickly to the front entrance. He pictured Lauren surprised, perhaps irritated that he had disrupted her evening routine. He unlocked the heavy door and stepped inside. The air smelled wrong. Not his wife's perfume, not the usual lemon polish. It was sharp and chemical, like bleach mixed with something medicinal, something that made his throat tighten. Michael stood motionless in the foyer, listening. No television murmur, no kitchen sounds, no music from upstairs. He took 2 steps down the hall. Someone rushed him from the left. A hand sealed his mouth completely. A second hand grabbed his forearm and yanked him backward into darkness. The briefcase hit the floor with a thud. Michael tried to shout, but his voice died against the palm. "Sir, please," a woman whispered, shaking. "Do not make a sound." Michael recognized the voice immediately. Sandra, his maid. Sandra pulled Michael deeper into the closet. The space reeked of shoe polish and mothballs. Her yellow gloves stayed pressed against his mouth. Her other hand pointed upward. Michael looked. Above them, a thin metal grate. A heating vent. Voices drifted down through the slats. Clear as confessions. 8 o'clock, his consigliere said. "The cargo's off the bridge at the turnpike exit. Clean. Looks like black ice." Michael's blood went cold. That was Vincent. Vincent, who had stood beside him for 12 years. Vincent, who knew every route, every schedule, every weakness. And the house. That was Lauren, his wife. Her voice smooth, unbothered, like she was ordering dinner. "Swept by 9, Vincent answered. "We'll have the accounts transferred by midnight. The families won't even question it. Grieving widow gets everything. I get operational control. Everybody wins." Lauren laughed. Soft, satisfied. "Except Michael." "Except Michael," Vincent agreed. Michael's chest burned. His fists clenched so hard his nails cut into his palms. Sandra's grip tightened on his wrist. Her eyes begged him to stay still. The footsteps moved toward the stairs. "I'll call the crew," Vincent said. "Make sure they're in position by 7:30. He's always on time." "He's predictable," Lauren said. That's why this works. Their voices faded upward. A door closed somewhere on the second floor. Silence pressed down on the closet. Michael tried to breathe, but the air felt too thick. Sandra finally removed her hand from his mouth. He turned to her, his voice a ragged whisper. How long have you known? Her face crumpled. 3 weeks, Mr. Clemenza. I heard them planning it in the study. I didn't know who to tell, who to trust. Michael stared at her. The maid. The invisible woman who poured his coffee and ironed his shirts. She had saved his life. And his own wife had signed his death warrant. Sandra cracked the closet door. The hallway stretched empty, but voices still murmured upstairs. Michael's instinct was to walk out the front door, get in his car, and disappear. Sandra grabbed his arm. They have men at every exit, she whispered. Front gate, garage, side door. I saw them arrive an hour ago. Michael's mind raced. The security monitors? They control the feed now. Your head of security, Marco, he's with them. Another betrayal. Marco had been with him for 8 years. Trained him personally. Michael felt the walls closing in. Sandra tugged him toward the back of the house. Follow me. Stay quiet. They moved through the kitchen. The overhead lights were off, but the undercabinet glow gave enough light to navigate. Sandra led him past the walk-in pantry to a narrow door he had never noticed. She opened it. A service staircase. Steep, wooden, built for staff to move between floors without being seen. They descended into darkness. The stairs creaked under Michael's weight. Sandra moved like a ghost, her steps silent. At the bottom, they emerged into a basement hallway Michael didn't know existed. Exposed pipes ran along the ceiling. The walls were cinder block, painted institutional gray. This connects to the laundry room, Sandra whispered. There's a chute that leads outside to the old coal delivery area. No cameras. They passed storage rooms filled with forgotten furniture. Michael's expensive life, boxed and abandoned. At the end of the hall, Sandra stopped at a metal chute door. She yanked it open. Cold air rushed in, rain and exhaust fumes. The city. It's a 4-foot drop, she said. I'll go first. She climbed in, feet first, and disappeared. Michael heard her land with a soft thud. He looked back at the basement. His empire was upstairs. His money, his power, his name. And none of it mattered if he was dead. He crawled into the chute and dropped into the rain. If you're hooked on Michael's fight for survival, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment below. Do you think he can take back his empire? Or is it already too late? Michael landed hard on wet concrete. Pain shot through his ankle. He bit back a curse and looked around. They were in an alley behind the mansion. Dumpsters lined the walls. The rain hammered down, soaking through his suit in seconds. Sandra grabbed his elbow. We have to move. Now. She led him through the alley, away from the estate lights. Michael limped beside her, his polished shoes slipping on the slick pavement. They emerged onto a side street. Sandra flagged down a city bus. A bus. Michael Clemenza had not been on public transportation in 20 years. They climbed aboard. The driver barely looked up. Sandra paid, with crumpled bills from her pocket. They sat in the back. Michael's black suit dripped water onto the floor. An old woman across the aisle stared at him. He turned away. 15 minutes later, Sandra pulled the cord. They stepped off into a neighborhood Michael had never visited. Cracked sidewalks. Faded brick buildings. Laundromats with flickering signs. She led him up 3 flights of stairs in a building that smelled like fried food and mildew. She unlocked a door. The apartment was smaller than Michael's closet. 1 room. A twin bed shoved against the wall. A kitchenette with a hot plate. A single window overlooking a fire escape. Sandra locked the door behind them. Michael stood in the center of the room, dripping, speechless. This was where she lived. Where she went after scrubbing his floors and serving his meals. Sit, Sandra said, pulling out a folding chair. Michael sat. His hands were shaking. Not from cold. From rage. From fear. from the crushing realization that he had nothing. No guards. No weapons. No allies. He looked at Sandra, this woman he had never really seen, and understood the truth. He was not a king anymore. He was a man in a stranger's apartment, soaked to the bone, with assassins hunting him in his own city. And the only thing keeping him alive was the kindness of someone he had always ignored. Michael pulled out his phone. Soaked, but still working. He opened his banking app with shaking fingers. Sandra stood by the window, watching the street below. The screen loaded. Michael's primary account appeared. Balance, $847. He blinked. Refreshed. Still $847. That was impossible. He had $17 million in that account last week. He switched to his offshore holdings. Access denied.
Password changed. He tried his business account.
Frozen. His investment portfolio.
Locked.
One by one, every account showed the same truth. Vincent had been thorough. Michael scrolled to his call log. He needed to reach his accountant, his lawyer, someone. Then he stopped. Who could he trust? Vincent knew everyone. Had access to everything. Michael looked up at Sandra. My accounts are gone. All of them. She turned from the window. Her face was sad but not surprised. They've been moving money for weeks, Mr. Clemenza. Small amounts. I saw the statements in the study trash. I didn't understand what it meant. Michael stood. He pulled out his wallet. $300 bills. 2 credit cards that were probably already canceled. He was worth billions on paper. Properties, businesses, investments spanning 3 states. But right now, in this moment, he had $300. He had been stripped of more than his crown. They had erased him, made him a ghost in his own empire. I need to access my secondary safe, Michael said. The one in the Bridgeport property. Vincent doesn't know about it. Sandra shook her head. If they drained your accounts, they know about all your properties. They'll have them watched. Michael slammed his fist against the wall. The thin drywall dented. An elderly voice shouted from the next apartment. He had never felt powerless before. Never been on the receiving end of the very tactics he had used on his enemies. Sandra moved closer. We can't fight them with money, Mr. Clemenza. They have all of yours. But they don't have something else. What? Information. And people they don't see. Sandra made 3 phone calls. Michael listened, stunned. She spoke in rapid Spanish to someone named Maria, then switched to Polish with someone called Kasia. The 3rd call was in English to a man named Jerome. She hung up. 3 crews are searching the city, she said. 1 watching your club. 1 at your lawyer's office. 1 circling your usual restaurants. How do you know this? Michael asked. Sandra sat on the edge of her bed. You think your world is the only one that talks. We see everything, Mr. Clemenza. The housekeepers, the drivers, the doormen. We're invisible to you. That makes us perfect witnesses. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed. She read the text and looked up. Marco's crew just left the east side. They're heading toward the dock district. They think you might run to the boat. Michael's yacht. They were covering every escape route. Another text. Sandra's eyes widened. Your wife just withdrew $200,000 from the business account.
Cash.
She's at the bank on Michigan Avenue right now. Michael's jaw tightened. Lauren was already spending his money. Celebrating. Another buzz. Jerome says there's a black SUV parked outside your accountant's building. 2 men inside. Waiting. Michael paced the small room. 3 steps. Turn. 3 steps back. They had the city locked down. Every exit, every ally, every resource. But Sandra was right. They were watching the places Michael would go. The people Michael would call. They were hunting a Mafia boss. Sandra made another call. Listened. Her face went pale. She hung up. Mr. Clemenza. They just put a bounty out. $500,000. For you. Dead or alive. The room went silent. Michael had put out bounties before. He knew what it meant. Every two-bit hustler, every desperate criminal, every broke enforcer in the city would be looking for him now. Sandra stood. We need to move.
Now.
Before someone in this building recognizes you. The walls are closing in on Michael. Can he survive with a target on his back? Smash that like button and subscribe to see if he makes it out alive. Comment below. Would you trust Sandra if you were in Michael's position? They waited until midnight. Sandra borrowed a car from Jerome, a rusted Honda with a cracked windshield. They drove through back streets, avoiding main roads. Michael slouched in the passenger seat, a baseball cap pulled low. The safe house was in Pilsen, a gray brick building Michael owned through a shell company. Only 2 people knew about it. Michael and his late father. Vincent couldn't know. They couldn't. Sandra parked 2 blocks away. They walked through the rain, staying close to shadows. The building looked abandoned. Graffiti on the walls. Broken windows on the ground floor.
Perfect.
Michael unlocked the side door with a key he kept separate from all others. They slipped inside. The stairwells smelled like urine and mold. They climbed to the 3rd floor. Michael stopped at apartment 3F. He knelt, pried up a loose floorboard in the hallway, and pulled out another key. His father's old trick. Inside, the apartment was bare. No furniture. Just empty rooms and peeling paint. Michael walked to the bedroom closet. He pushed aside a loose panel in the back wall. Behind it, a small fireproof safe. He dialed the combination. His mother's birthday. The safe clicked open. Inside, a burner phone, still in the package. A ledger, leather-bound, filled with his father's handwriting. And a Beretta with 2 magazines. Michael pulled out the ledger first. He flipped through pages of coded transactions. His father had kept detailed records of every deal, every payment, every betrayal in the organization's history, including Vincent's. Page 47. Michael found it. Vincent Calabrese. Embezzlement. January 2019. 600,000 skimmed from union contracts. Michael's father had discovered it.
Documented it.
But never confronted Vincent. He had kept it as insurance. This proves Vincent's been stealing for years, Michael said. Sandra looked over his shoulder. Will the families believe it? They'll have to. This is in my father's hand. He was respected. Feared. Michael pocketed the phone and the ledger. He checked the Beretta. Loaded. He wasn't defenseless anymore. He had evidence. He had a weapon. And he had a plan forming in his mind. We call for sit-down, Michael said. Tomorrow night. Neutral ground. I present this to the 5 families. Sandra's eyes filled with worry. They'll kill you the moment you walk in. Michael smiled.
Cold.
Dangerous. The smile of a man who had nothing left to lose. Then I'll die a boss. Not a rat in hiding. Michael made the call at 1 a.m. The phone rang twice. Gallo residence. The voice was gravelly, suspicious. This is Michael Clemenza.
I'm calling a sit-down.
Tomorrow night. Russo's warehouse. 9 o'clock. Silence. Then, you're supposed to be dead. Not yet. Tell the families. Tell them all. If they want the truth about Vincent Calabrese, they'll show. He hung up before there could be questions. By dawn, the entire underworld would know. Michael Clemenza was alive. And he was coming. The next evening, Sandra drove. The battered Honda sputtered and coughed through the industrial district. Michael sat in the passenger seat, his father's ledger on his lap, the Beretta tucked in his waistband. They had both dressed in dark clothing. Invisible. Forgettable. When they arrived at Russo's warehouse, 4 black limousines already lined the street. Michael took a breath. Sandra touched his arm. I'm coming in with you.
No.
Too dangerous. Mr. Clemenza. Her voice was firm. I didn't save you, so you could die alone. I'm coming. He looked at her. This woman who owed him nothing. Who had risked everything. He nodded. They walked to the warehouse door. Two guards stood outside, arms crossed. They saw Michael and their hands moved toward their jackets. "He's expected," one said into a radio. The door opened. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit. A long table sat in the center, surrounded by folding chairs. 5 men sat waiting. The heads of the 5 families: Don Gallo, Don Russo, Don Marchetti,
Don Tang.
Don Okonkwo, and at the far end, standing, not sitting, Vincent Calabrese. He smiled when he saw Michael. Confident, triumphant. "Michael, we heard you had an accident." Michael walked forward. Sandra stayed close behind him. Every eye in the room tracked them. "I had a warning," Michael said. "From someone who actually values loyalty." Vincent's smile faltered. "Just slightly." Don Gallo leaned forward. "You called this meeting clemenza. We came out of respect for your father." "Speak." Michael placed the ledger on the table. "Vincent has been stealing from this organization for 6 years. My father documented every transaction, every embezzled dollar, every betrayal." Vincent laughed. "Your father's paranoid notes? That's your evidence." Michael opened the ledger. Page 47. He slid it toward Don Gallo. January 2019. 600,000 from union contracts. September 2020. 400,000 from the Port Authority deal. March 2022. 800,000 from construction kickbacks. Don Gallo read. His face darkened. Michael continued. 2 weeks ago, Vincent drained my accounts. 17 million. He planned to kill me tonight and split my territory with my wife. Vincent's hand moved toward his jacket. 3 guns appeared instantly. Not aimed at Michael. Aimed at Vincent. Don Russo stood. "Is this true, Calabrese?" Vincent's confidence cracked. "He's desperate. Making accusations. My father kept records because he knew," Michael interrupted. "He knew Vincent was a snake. But he also knew Vincent was useful. So he kept him close. And documented everything." Don Marchetti took the ledger. Flipped through pages. His expression said everything. Sandra stepped forward. She pulled a phone from her pocket. "I have recordings. From the mansion. Mrs. Clemenza and Mr. Calabrese planning the murder. Planning the takeover. I can play them now." The room went silent. Vincent's face drained of color. Don Gallo stood slowly. He looked at Vincent. Then at Michael. "The old laws are clear. Betrayal of a sitting boss. Theft from the families. These are capital offenses." Vincent backed toward the door. The guards blocked him. Don Gallo nodded to Don Russo. "It's decided."
2 shots.
Vincent Calabrese dropped. No ceremony. No speeches. Just justice. Don Gallo turned to Michael. "Your house is in order?" Michael nodded. "It will be." "Then we recognize you. Michael Clemenza, head of the Clemenza family. By right and by blood." The other Dons stood. One by one, they shook Michael's hand. When they left, only Michael and Sandra remained. And Vincent's body. Michael looked at Sandra. "You saved my life. Twice." She met his eyes. "You saved mine too, Mr. Clemenza.
You just didn't know it yet."
Michael returned home at dawn. The gate opened. The house stood silent. Marco and the traitorous guards were already gone.
Dealt with.
Lauren had fled the city. Her accounts frozen, her name poison. The empire was Michael's again. But he was not the same man who had walked through that door 2 days ago. Sandra stood in the foyer. The same spot where she had saved him. "What happens now?" she asked. Michael looked around. The marble floors. The expensive art. The cold, empty luxury. "Everything changes," he said. He walked upstairs to his bedroom. Opened his closet. The rows of black suits. Thousands of dollars of fabric. Symbols of power he no longer needed to prove. He pulled out the suit he had worn that night. Still damp. Still smelling of rain and fear. He carried it downstairs to the fireplace. Sandra watched as he laid it in the hearth. He struck a match. The fabric caught. Flames consumed the suit, black silk turning to ash. "I need you to do something for me," Michael said. Sandra waited. "I want you to run my household operations. All of them. You'll hire the staff. Set their wages. Make sure they're treated with respect. Real respect." Sandra's eyes widened. "Mr. Clemenza, you're the reason I'm alive. You saw what I was too blind to see. You're exactly who I need." He turned to face her fully. "I'm rebuilding this organization. From the ground up. And it starts here. With people I can trust. People who are never afraid to tell me the truth." Sandra nodded slowly. "I'll need an office." Michael smiled. A real smile. "Take the study. It's yours." Outside, the sun rose over Chicago. The city stirred to life. And in the Clemenza mansion, a new empire began. Not built on fear and blindness, but on loyalty, on respect, on seeing the people who had always been there. Michael Clemenza had lost everything. And in losing it, he had found something he never knew he needed. A kingdom worth keeping. Michael's story proves that the people we overlook are often the ones who save us. If this story gripped you from the first word to the last, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss another tale of betrayal, survival, and redemption. Drop a comment below and tell us, what would you have done in Michael's position? Would you have trusted Sandra? And who do you think was the real power player in this story, Michael or Sandra? Let's discuss in the comments. Share this with someone who loves a story where the underdog becomes the hero. We'll see you in the next one.